Hey everybody. So this week's podcast is going to be just me. Sorry, no guest. But I wanted to address a bunch of things about this. Before I actually got an oven, I spent about 3 years hemming and hawing about what I was going to do. Because after March and before October, I'm not allowed to turn the oven on in the house. Well, I am, but it heats the house up. We live in New Jersey. It gets hot. We don't want the oven. So, if I have to turn the oven on for a little while, that's fine. But if I'm baking bread, I'm going to get that oven up to 500 degrees. It's going to stay there for a little while to heat up the stone. And then I'm going to put the bread in. It's a few hours, and it definitely heats the house up. So between March and October, I would throw away my starter. And that's just one aspect of this, right? It's not just bread. I want to make pizza. All right, so in the advent of all of these lovely pizza ovens, you got the Uni, the Gosni, a whole bunch of these other Fiorno, Alpha, whatever, Bravo. There's so many out there. And there's gas-powered, there's wood-powered, there's hybrids. There's so many to choose from. And I thought for a little while I was just going to go get myself an Uni, so I can make pizza one at a time out here, and that would be a nice, easy, simple solution. But then I started to think, well, I'd like to do more with my oven than just make pizza. So you see I've got a cast iron Dutch oven here, and let's do the measurement, right? So that measures about 7 inches to the top of the handle. I've got another Dutch oven, and that measures maybe 8 inches to the top of the handle, maybe a little bit less than 8 inches, but it also measures across about 15 inches handle to handle. But you could always put it in this way, in which case, it's only 13 inches. Okay? The same with this, right? Handle to handle, 14 inches, but if you turn it this way, you're talking about 12 inches. Okay? So I started to wonder, what was out there that I could afford to stick out in the yard. And I didn't have a nice granite countertop like this. This was all part of the package. But I thought maybe I would just get myself a nice table that would support the weight of an oven, and then I'd have something I could use outside. So I started to go to the different outlets that had like the Alpha oven in stock, that I could actually see it. Because when you look online and you look at the dimensions, one of the things that you don't really get to see is they talk about the opening, but they never talk about the archway, right? They never talk about that. So, for example, here, the opening is 8 inches, but it's 8 inches here, and it's 8 inches here, right? So I've got a bit of opening here, right, where it's actually 8.5, okay? And the actual opening here is 17. But if you look inside, it's really only a little more than 16 to the edge of this, which I'll zoom in so you can see that, okay? So, for example, this casserole dish is, 14.5 wide, and I could easily slide it all the way back, okay? Similarly, this Dutch oven, you see how there's a lot of clearance. And this Dutch oven, even with the handles, there's a lot of clearance. So what I discovered is I brought this Dutch oven with me shopping, and none of the ovens that I looked at that were, on the sales room floor could accommodate this Dutch oven. Now, why did I want it to accommodate that Dutch oven? Well, because I really was unclear about how I was going to make my sourdough. Like when I make sourdough in the house, I do it inside the Dutch oven because of the whole steam that it captures, right? You know, the whole idea of when you put if the Dutch oven is hot enough, when you put the sourdough in there raw and put the lid on and pop it in the oven for 20 minutes, you get that oven spring. I wasn't sure how that was going to play with an outdoor wood-fired oven. I just didn't know. And I have made sourdough in the inside oven and in this oven without the Dutch oven. I have not yet attempted to use the Dutch oven inside here for sourdough. But I have used this particular Dutch oven. It's a Loge, and it's pretty massive. I've used this Loge inside here to make chili Colorado. Um, um, what's it called? Beef stroganoff, butter chicken, sog lamb. I even did the crawfish pasta in here in this particular Dutch oven. And then, of course, it's a matter of how hot do I have my flame? You know, how hot do I need my oven to accommodate or to, you know, make whatever dish I'm trying to make the way it needs to be made, right? It shouldn't be, there are different temperatures for different purposes, okay? You know, you don't always crank this puppy up to 800, 900 degrees with an oven floor of, you know, 700 degrees. I mean, you do that for Neapolitan style pizza, but for other types of pizza, I might use it at a lower temperature. And for stuff like this, I might use it at a lower temperature. So again, the reason why I purchased this particular model was because it could accommodate this. And also, watch this. I could fit that one and that one if I wanted to, right? So there's a lot of room in there. And also you'll notice way back there is my andiron, and that's where my fire would be. So I hope that that kind of explains why I went ahead and did this. Now let me explain some more about what else was attractive. All the other ovens that I looked at on the sales floor, the floor of the oven was fire brick, of course, but it was like, you know, squares of pizza stone, little squares that were individually placed in there. Okay, and they were separate pieces. Whereas this, you can see the floor of this, that hearth is a 2-inch stone, right? 2 inches. And it goes all the way to the back with a straight shot. Now, on the side there, is a separate piece. When I zoom in, you'll see there's a groove here, and there's a groove on that side. That kind of makes the circle for you, okay? So one of the other things that I was very, you know, interested in is having enough real estate in here to do multiple things at the same time, or to maybe put more than one pizza in at the same time, which, oh, by the way, I'm not good enough yet to do that. Right now, I'm using my flame in the back, and I'm only doing one pizza at a time. But I believe that I could push the flame to the side, and then I could put 2 or even 3 pizzas in there, depending on the size, of course, like 12-inch pizzas. I could probably fit 3 12-inch pizzas in there once I get better skill. Okay, so the idea that this hearth is 2 inches was very attractive to me. And then it came down to, well, what do I do in terms of building this thing out? So Chicago has a kit that you can build into a beautiful stone structure, and then use it like that. And what I have here is the tabletop version of it. Tabletop my ass. This thing weighs over 500 pounds. So when they got delivered here, it was 4 guys that literally lifted it up with a plank that they stuck through the bottom. And 4 guys lifted it. So, and you'll see that in the video that I'm sharing of the whole construction of this. This is just the intro as to my choice as to why I selected this particular oven. All things being equal, you know, there were other ovens out there that were about the same price, but this one seemed to be the most attractive to me for those reasons. You'll also notice that I've done just wood. Chicago has a hybrid that's gas and wood, which means you could run a gas line from the house into it, and then you can get it fired up more quickly and then use wood at the end. But I didn't want that, right? I mean, I'll show you the egg, but my big green egg is 22 years old, and it's, you know, lump charcoal only. But again, steep learning curve. I've had this thing for about a year now, and now I'm feeling comfortable enough to do a lot of things with it. Like I said, I love to, I mean, and I've done, oh, check it out. So with this cast iron skillet, I've done steaks, and then this is an option. This is an option, but I believe it's essential. And this is the insulated door. So the insulated door is very cool because I could slide it in here like this, right? And not seal it, right? Just leave it like that, or turn it a little bit to the side, right? So now there's airflow through here, but I'm keeping the heat from radiating out so that I can get it to a more intense heat quicker, okay? Also, when the embers die, I can then seal it, and then it'll retain a more consistent temperature for longer. So if I wanted to bake a bunch of things later on after I was done doing whatever I was doing with it, or if I intended to just bake, I would make a smaller fire, get the oven up to the proper temperature, and then use the insulated door to achieve the baking. So that's very cool. This is an add-on. I had to purchase this separately, but I think it's essential. And you know, all the ovens come rated with a certain temperature. I think this thing's rated to go to 1,000 degrees. I don't think I've ever gotten it up to 1,000, though. I don't know how I would measure that, because if you look at this, this is a standard oven thermometer that you could stick in your regular indoor oven. And this is basically to figure out if your oven is properly calibrated, because whatever you set your oven to, it should register on this at the same temperature. But it only goes up to 550. So when I go above 550 in here, I take it out because I don't want to burn out the thermometer. Okay, the oven comes with this lovely laser, right? Right now the oven's cold. So you see it's only 48 degrees on the floor of the oven, which makes sense because it's kind of chilly out right now. It comes with that. But that's the thing, right? When you measure with the laser, you're measuring the floor temperature. You're not measuring the ambient air. And there's a lot of things that go on inside this oven. You know, there's radiant heat, there's convection heat, then there's the actual floor temperature, and they all come into play when you're baking or baking pizza, or doing a stew. So I think that's pretty much all I had to say about all that. I will say this, when I went looking, some of the ovens that I really, really liked, I loved the Gosney products. Um, the Alpha products were very cool. I saw them on the sales floor. They were nice. Um, there was one I saw online that I never actually got to see in person. It's Cru, CRU. It's made in Portugal. Looks like an awesome oven. But again, when you look at the specs, they tell you the size of the opening, but they never tell you the angle of the arc. So when I brought this pot and tried to put it inside one of the Alpha Fornos, it just didn't fit. And then there's other designer ovens that you can get into, and then there's also kits that you can design your own. But I'm not skilled at masonry, and I didn't want to come into my yard and make a big mess and have an eyesore that my wife would be mad at me about. So at least this is attractive, and it suits my purpose, which is I can bake year round now. And as a matter of fact, even though it's cooler out now, there's still some things that I'll do out here that I won't do in the house. And I love the idea of having my big green egg and this together because they complement each other so very well. Like there's no competition here. The egg does certain things that are it's designed for, and it does it very well. And then this does other stuff that would be difficult to do on the egg. So they complement each other very, very well. And I'm having a lot of fun with this thing. When I'm done baking, like whenever I'm done cooking with it, I'll let it cool down a bit, and then I'll put a little parchment paper in the bottom and put little bits of Parmigiano Reggiano and make little Parma crisps, right? I mean, as long as I've got the heat in there, uh, I try to not waste it, and I try to utilize whatever stage the heat is at for other things. So, like later on after I might do brownies or cookies or whatever. It doesn't matter. And I want to say also that the wood fired oven chef, that guy Clive, he's freaking James Bond. Like he had a lot of great information about his oven and how he does things, and fire placement and the types of woods he uses and the different kinds of um, 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 what are these things called? Cookware, right? The different types of cookware that he uses. So that's the next thing that I'm going to get involved with, and that is, getting other types of cookware that I can use inside here. I generally want to have cookware with these handles. You know, this this is this is my grandmother's old paella pan, which you see how it doesn't quite fit unless you turn it this way, but it fits in there nicely. And although this is not, it's aluminum, right? So it's reactive. So I can't do anything with acid in this pan. This pan does work out well for a lot of other purposes inside there. And that pan also fits perfectly on top of the egg. So again, Clive explained all of that, and he actually gave me a lot of clues as to what I wanted in my oven. Now, obviously, maybe not obviously, but I couldn't afford to do what Clive did at his house. But again, Clive and I have different situations, right? Like he lives in Southern California where it's always nice weather, and I live in New Jersey where it's a crapshoot. That was me rolling the dice, right? It's a crapshoot as to what you're going to get. It's funny. It's a Chicago brick oven, which Chicago is supposed to be the windy city, but I will tell you, this is a nuisance. When it's windy, this thing slams shut, and a lot of times I'll prop it open with a piece of wood like that. But if it's windy enough, it'll blow the wood off the deck and then start to close on me. So I wound up sometimes putting like a Belgian block to hold it open. I wish that there was a smarter way for that door to work. And actually, what would be awesome is if the door just slid down this way. But I guess that's not for everybody's purpose, right? Like, you know, not everybody's using their oven the way I'm using mine. And, you know, it is a very pretty door. So, you know, kudos. The oven is friggin' awesome. Like when I get this puppy up to, you know, where the floor is 700 degrees, you can touch it out here and put your hand there and keep it there for a while. And you could feel that it's a little bit warm, but you're not going to burn yourself. But the other thing that's interesting about this, and I'm sure this is true of all ovens, not just mine, is that there is soot everywhere, no matter what you do. Like if you put your hand inside and the back of your hand touches the top of that dome, look, I got soot on those knuckles. And that soot rubs off onto everything. And, you know, then I get yelled at for bringing soot through the house. So I have to go wash my hands. And even like, see, the palms of my hands are a little bit dirty just from touching some of these things. So, you know, you have to keep that in mind as well. But again, it's a matter of getting used to it. Um, and like I said, uh, my purpose was to have a place outside that I can use an actual oven. And I love the idea that it's just wood. I feel kind of rustic that way. Okay, so we're just walking through the actual build of this. I took single photos of the different stages of how they put this thing together. And you see how underneath it's all constructed with that metal frame. Then we put some concrete board on top. And then finally, eventually, there will be the granite and then the stucco. So that's step one. So I'm going to take the opportunity to chronicle the progress here. See this structure that we're building? Right now it's framed out. We're waiting for the granite to be placed on top. The granite's going to come out to about here, okay? Curve around, and then it's going to overhang here a bit, overhang the front. And you notice how I've got my 40 inches marked off here because that's how deep the Chicago pizza oven is. And that's what's going on top of this monstrosity. And then my wood will go underneath there, and I'll have a little drawer to put some utensils. So I already have my power here, which I already had, but we ran an extra line onto this side with an outlet so that I can put an electric burner on this side and get rid of that gas propane thing. So this is the beginning of this thing. It's going to be stuccoed, granite on top, and Chicago pizza oven right on top there. And what's interesting is this is 40 inches measured, right? The Chicago pizza oven is 38 inches wide. So you see how it's pretty much going to take over the entire top of this. Of course, the granite's going to hang over a bit, so I'm going to have a little bit of edge to play with to put things down. But I was kind of surprised just how big it is, and I'm going to take more videos as we progress. Okay, so the structure is prepped for stucco. We got our granite delivered. As you can see, look at that nice granite on top there, right? My electric is all hooked up. We're waiting on them to do the stucco and put the drawers in, and then of course deliver the oven. Very cool, huh? Okay, now here are the different stages of the oven being delivered in the truck, out of the truck, on top. I mean, this thing is I was so surprised how huge this thing is when I saw it delivered. It was amazing to me. And these guys, you know, it's teamwork, right? They just got those planks underneath it and lifted it up, and there it is, that giant oven on top of that massive structure. All right, so we got the oven delivered and they did the stucco. They still have to put the doors on, the drawers and everything, but it's looking good, man. Look at the size of that oven. That's crazy, huh? Oh my goodness. And yeah, the next thing is when these guys are done, I have to cure it. And I'm gonna take a whole video on curing this thing, but oh my goodness, we are going to be having fun with this. Okay, so there it is. It's complete. And now the learning process begins. And it's a long process. All right, so I just took everything out of it. And look at that, it's pristine in there. It's pretty deep. So now the curing process begins. I think I'm going to put a thermometer in there so I could watch the temperature. This way I don't have to use the laser. Look at that hearth, how nice and thick that is. That's crazy. This is why I fell in love with this thing. Not to mention that I can fit my whole Dutch oven in there. So, and then I have to purchase the fire door because that's just a decorative door. But let the curing begin. So I was kind of surprised about how quickly that little bit of wood burns and how I had to keep feeding it so frequently to maintain 6 hours of fire at a small temperature.